The World Economic Forum has released its annual energy transition report entitled Fostering an Effective Energy Transition, which is the 2021 edition. It's a global report that looks at 115 countries. South Africa currently ranks 110 out of 115 on the Energy Transition Index. The report notes that South Africa has considerably improved its energy system performance over the past 10 years. Well, to fill us in on the detail, I'm joined by Harsh Vijay Singh. He's project lead of a system initiative on shaping the future of energy at the World Economic Forum. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Singh. Now, we wonder whether indeed you're seeing trends in terms of how developed countries fare relative to developing countries when it comes to progress made in the Energy Transition Index.
We see more or less similar trends on this factor. This time, when we did the analysis, we had a time series of 10 years of data, and we were able to look at some of the longer-term trends as the world has seen over the past decade. And one of the key findings is that 92 out of 115 countries that we do track have made net improvements on their energy transit index scores over the past decade. And this includes both developed and developing countries. So while it may be true that developed countries had a different starting point, but as far as the trends go, as far as improvements go, the progress has been more or less unanimous. And as a matter of fact, emerging economies, developing countries have made faster improvements as compared to advanced economies.
Now, you indicate...
The reasons may be... Sorry.
Mr. Singh, you indicate that South Africa has improved in the index. In what areas have you seen us improve?
So we do track the scores across two key sub-indices, as we call them. One is how a country's energy system is performing right now. And second is how well is the country's enabling environment positioned for energy transition in future. So South Africa is progressing on its current energy system performance and specifically on energy security and access. So over the past decade, when we do track, we see strong improvements in energy access, both in terms of electricity and clean cooking fuels. And improvements have also been on environmental sustainability. Although it's very important to note that on an absolute scale, the scores on environmental sustainability dimension for South Africa remain lower than the global average. So there is a lot of scope for improvement, but the trajectory remains positive.
So coal remains an important input in our electricity generation, and there's also the concept of a just transition, which allows for developing countries to also look at their development needs while they transition to a more carbon neutral reality. Do you think that South Africa is getting this balance right?
So for a quantitative index or any benchmarking index for that matter, capturing just transition quantitatively will be very challenging given the nature of that topic. So we do not track that specifically in our index. However, we do know that the dialogue on just transition in South Africa is far more advanced than in many other countries. And as a matter of fact, South Africa was the only country to mention just transition in its initial nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, as part of Paris Agreement back in 2015. So the awareness remains there. Sorry.
Do continue.
Should I continue?
Yes, you may.
The awareness remains there. The political will remains there. But the future trajectory that remains to be seen. Last year, South Africa announced net zero ambitions, and that will inevitably entail retirement of some aging thermal power fleet. And that includes the communities that are reliant on these assets, as well as the people who are employed there. So there is a risk, but there is also an opportunity of starting from a clean slate. With the right enabling environment and measures in place, South Africa has the opportunity to leapfrog into a new energy system.
Yeah. Mr. Singh, just looking at the more global picture, with the United States having rejoined the Paris Climate Accord, do you think we're going to see significant strides in averting climatic catastrophes in the future?
I think it's definitely a welcome move rather than unilateral action by countries because this is a challenge of global proportions where every country needs to work together. So with the rejoining of the United States and the deliberations that this week they're supposed to be on the climate summit organized by the US administration. So these are welcome moves. This will definitely embolden the efforts on international collaboration. And if the economic leaders of this world display this kind of consensus and solidarity, then it is also a very, very strong indication for other countries in the world to make progress in a similar direction.
Thanks very much, Mr. Singh, and all the very best in the work that you do. That's Harsh Vijay Singh, Project Lead for System Initiative on Shaping the Future of Energy at the World Economic Forum.